Did I smooth the camera? Oh. Way to be prepared, Heather. By Suke Kuriga. No. I need to reweed. Come on. And whether I made it. Hello and welcome to another video. My name is Heather and as always I'm reading with a vengeance and I hope you are too. I just want to start off by saying welcome back to all of you lovely OGs who keep coming back. And if you're new to my channel, a very warm welcome to you. I hope everybody is doing very well. I usually say it at the end of the video, but I might as well just say it here. If it's not too much trouble and you like what you see here, please give that little like button a boop and a subscribe would be wonderful. What I'm here to talk to you about today are the books that I have actually set as goals for myself to get to, except with a little bit of a twist. And I'll get to that in just a moment. I set myself a goal at the beginning of 2023 with 23 books to read in 2023. And just really quickly, let's talk about how I did, shall we? So I'm just going to go down this list really quickly with a brief reason of why it was included on this list. 10 minutes, 38 seconds in This Strange World by Elif Shafak. It was added to this book after I finished The Island of Missing Trees, which is one of my favorites. Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. Of course, everybody's been talking about that for a couple of years. Circe by Madeline Miller. A very popular book. I absolutely loved The Song of Achilles, so I think I'll like that one. Commonwealth by Ann Patchett. I kind of got on an Ann Patchett kick last year and somehow I didn't get to this one. December Park by Ronald Malfi. This is the one that I wanted to read first because I've read that he does horror really well, especially when it includes coming of age, and I ended up reading something else by him, I think because it was available to me first. Even White Trash Zombies Get the Blues by Diana Rowland. This is the second of this series. I really enjoyed the first. Free Food for Millionaires by Min Jin Lee. I've wanted to read this for a very long time, ever since I finished her Pachinko. In Bloom by CJ Skews. This is the second in the Sweet Pea series. Of course, the first one I loved. Lay Lain by Bryn Greenwood. I've wanted to get to this one because her All the Ugly and Wonderful Things is one of my all-time favorites. Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid because I want to read all her stuff. Mississippi Blood by Greg Iles. This is part of the Penn Cage series that I absolutely love. My Darkest Prayer by S.A. Cosby because I will read everything he puts out. 9 Perfect Strangers by Leanne Moriarty. Moriarty is one of my favorite authors. I am slowly but surely getting through her backlist. Oh Beautiful by Jung Yoon. I read Shelter and I was very interested in reading something else by her. Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. Super popular and I loved The Martian. Quicksand by Steve Toltz. Just one that has been on my TBR for a very long time and I loved his A Fraction of the Whole. Senlin Ascends by Josiah Bancroft. The genre of this book is usually not up my alley, but so many people have talked about it in such a way that it intrigues me, and I just love the sound of the premise. I even bought it, it's on my shelf. Sweet Bean Paste by Durian Sukagawa. 13 by Steve Kavanaugh. The Girls I've Been by Tess Sharp. The Great Alone by Kristen Hanna. I am slowly making my way through her backlist. The Harpy by Megan Hunter. Really interesting premise. It's been on my TBR for a couple of years now. I just can't seem to find it. And 3 Hours by Rosamund Lupton. A couple of booktubers that I watch have read this and raved about it. It's got that thriller aspect that I just love. I know I'm going to love this book. So how many of these books did I actually get to out of 23? 5. I read 5 of them. And what's even more pathetic is I have 4 additional ones on this list in my possession. I have no excuse not to have read them. So the ones that I read were Malibu Rising, My Darkest Prayer, Project Hail Mary, Sweet Bean Paste, and 13. The ones that I have in my possession are The Girls I've Been, Senlin Ascends, 9 Perfect Strangers, and Mississippi Blood. Absolutely no excuse. Now, to be perfectly honest, most, if not all of these books, they're going to continue on my TBR. Because when I made this list, these are all books that I absolutely for sure want to read. And as I go down this list, I still feel the same way about them. But the ones that have more of a likelihood to be read sooner rather than later are 10 Minutes, 38 Seconds in This Strange World, Before the Coffee Gets Cold, December Park, Even White Trash Zombies Get the Blues, In Bloom, Mississippi Blood, The Girls I've Been, and The Great Alone. So 5 out of 23, that's not great. It's not great, especially considering how many books I read last year. I read a lot of books. So I asked myself, am I going to make a list of 24 in 2024? That just seems kind of kitschy and I don't know. But then, yeah, it happened. But there's 2 things you need to know about this list. Number 1, none of the books that were on 23 in 2023 are on the 24 in 2024 list. And the second thing you need to know is I kind of put a little bit of my own spin on this 24 in 2024. There are 9 specific books on this list. And the 15 other slots on this list are taken up by a specific category. That'll become more clear as I get into it. Because I didn't do as well on my 23 list, I decided to do categories in addition to specific books just to give myself a little bit of flexibility. I think it's a little bit more realistic and it alleviates that pressure that kind of exists when you have this list of books that not I must read, but I definitely want to read in this frame of time. So I feel really good about it. I feel good. I think it's doable. I think it's exciting. So let's get on with it. Here are the 9 specific books that I put on my 24 in 2024. The Cuckoo's Calling by Robert Galbraith. I have been so intrigued by this series. Of course, it is the Cormoran Strike series. And obviously, I've been interested because I have the physical copy. Not only do I have the first one, but I have the second one, Career of Evil. It's a mystery thriller. It's a series. I think I'm going to like the main character. It takes place in the UK, which I love. I think 2024 is the year I'm going to finally get to the series. Next on my list, I also have the physical copy, and that is Long Division by Kesey Layman. This book has just intrigued me for a while in its structure. You have a story, I think, that's told in 2 different timelines, and the way the book is set up is you have a story here, and then if you flip it over and turn it around, you have another story that takes place on the backside as well. That alone just intrigues me. It's kind of described as a mix of contemporary Southern Gothic and Murakami-esque magical realism. So the intrigue that has surrounded this book for so long for me, it just persists, and I can't imagine letting too much more time go by before reading this. So this next one's a little bit different. My husband gave me Tales from Watership Down a couple of years ago for my birthday by Richard Adams, and this is the follow-up to the original Watership Down. I want to finally read this. However, I want to read Watership Down again because I read Watership Down as a child. Absolutely loved it. It has stuck with me for 100 years. Sorry, if things shifted, I had to reset everything because my memory went out. So technical difficulties. Where was I? Yes. I feel like I need to reread Watership Down so it'll be fresh before I read this. So this is kind of a twofer. This next one, I don't have a physical copy of. It is a nonfiction book that I am very interested in delving into because of the absolute relevance of the topic. It is called Irreversible Damage, The Transgender Craze Seducing Our Daughters by Abigail Schreier. Now, I've looked into it. The author is a journalist. She's not a psychologist or any kind of scientist. It'll be interesting to see her take on this. I'm just really interested to see different arguments about this topic. Next one is Home Stretch by Graham Norton. I don't know why this wasn't on my list for 2023 because I read his A Keeper 2 years ago and I really enjoyed it. His writing is fantastic. I love the settings that are in Ireland, and I knew when I finished A Keeper that I was going to read his entire backlist. Next up is In My Dreams I Hold a Knife by Ashley Winstead. This is a pretty popular one. There shouldn't be too much explanation necessary. However, I read my first Ashley Winstead just recently, Midnight is the Darkest Hour, and I absolutely loved it. Even though that's, I guess, not really a favorite among Ashley Winstead fans, this one is. But I knew when I read Midnight that I wanted to read more of her stuff, and this was the obvious choice. This one's going to be a definite this year. I know that because in the mystery book club that I help run at work, this is one of the selections this year. So at least I know for sure I'll be successful on one of these books. Next up is Betty by Tiffany McDaniel. And actually, I can credit this particular book to a lot of you because there's been so many of you that have recommended this book to me because you know I love historical fiction, because you know I love coming of age stories. I've been intrigued by Tiffany McDaniel for a while. Her most recent book, On the Savage Side, is on the top of my TBR list, but I think it's only fair that I read Betty first. Next up is Notes on an Execution by Danya Kukafka. I talked a lot about new releases last year because I do a series every month. And a lot of those books I'm still really excited about, but this one, because I think the synopsis really is unique and I haven't heard anybody say a negative thing about this book. It has just kind of stayed in the back of my mind. I really have high hopes for this one. Next up is West with Giraffes by Linda Rutledge. Historical fiction, coming of age, it has to do with animals. It's a no-brainer, right? And I have it on my Kindle, so it's right there for me. Okay, so now let's get into the categories that I have created for myself when I made this list of 24 in 2024. First up, I have read 3 new releases from 2023 that I talked about in my video series. So almost all of those books I have added to my TBR. I did a video, which I will link down below, of which of those new releases I'm still excited about. So I have a lot on my TBR. So I decided to kind of randomly draw 8 of them that just kind of stuck out at me when I went down my list of TBR. And of those, I'm going to pick 3 of them. So of the 8 that I'm going to choose 3 from, I'm really making this easy on myself. So we have The Little Liar by Mitch Albom, which is historical fiction surrounding World War II, right up my street. We have This Is How We End Things by R.J. Jacobs, a dark academia mystery thriller. We have The Heaven and Earth Grocery Store by James McBride, which is literary fiction, and I've been excited about this one since I read Deacon King Kong. We have Deep Sky by Yume Kitase. This is a mystery thriller that takes place in space. We have Where Echoes Die by Courtney Gold. This is a mystery thriller / horror. Small Mercies by Dennis Lehane, a mystery thriller, and I recently read his Mystic River. Absolutely loved the story. I loved his writing. This one is probably going to be one of the 3 that I pick for this year. Dust Child by Win Fan K. Mai. This is historical fiction surrounding the Vietnam War. And finally, I Will Find You by Harlan Coben, which is a mystery thriller, the synopsis of which it just sounds too good to be true. So from those, I'm going to pick 3 that'll be included in my 24 in 2024. The next category is continue on with 3 series that I've already started that I know I'm going to continue on with. That's going to be fairly easy because there were a handful of series that I started in 2023 that I absolutely loved and know for sure that I'm going to continue on with. The 3 most likely are going to be the Armand Gamache series by Louise Penny. I started the first one, I think in October or November, and I'm about to start number 4. So that's going to be an easy tick mark on this list. Also, the Will Trent series by Karen Slaughter. Triptych was one of my favorite books of 2023. In fact, it was an honorable mention in my favorites of 2023. And I think I'm already on number 3 for that one. And also the Cork O'Connor series by William Kent Kruger. Love his writing. I love the series. It's just a matter of availability as far as reading the next one for him. And I think I'm on number 3 with that one too. But the other hopefuls I hope to choose from is I'm really enjoying the Harry Hole series by Jo Nesbø, which takes place in Oslo, Norway most of the time. I have yet to read the second in the Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman. And finally, I have yet to read the 3rd and final book in the Beartown series, The Winners. I think this particular category is probably going to be the easiest to get to this year. Next category is, believe it or not, a classic. A classic, one, singular. And the ones that I have on my TBR have the best chance of me having any interest in reading them. Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. Yes, you heard that correctly. I have not read Jane Eyre yet. The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde, which I think will be the most accessible of these books to read. Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. I think I'm going to enjoy that one, but I might be the outlier on that. I'm still on the fence. Catch-22 by Joseph Heller. That's been on my Kindle forever. and I'm just so intimidated by it. It's a chunker of a book. I think it's also kind of a love it or hate it book. It worries me a little bit. And finally, Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov. Of course, I have the physical copy, so this should be the first one I reach for, right? This one's also worrisome for me. I feel like this is going to be a DNF, but I want to give it a go. I want to give it a go, as well as any other classic. Just one. Next category is a nonfiction book that has to do with a particular animal or animals in general. I have quite a few that have been on my TBR for a really long time, which is why I added this category to this list. I am going to be picking at least one. The ones that are on my TBR are The Cowboy and His Elephant by Malcolm McPherson, Homer's Odyssey by Gwen Cooper, Wesley the Owl, The Remarkable Love Story of an Owl and His Girl by Stacey O'Brien, Elephant Memories, 13 Years in the Life of an Elephant Family by Cynthia Moss, The Rhino with Glue-On Shoes, and Other Surprising True Stories of Zoo Vets and Their Patients by Lucy H. Spellman, Soul of a Lion, One Woman's Quest to Rescue Africa's Wildlife Refugees by Barbara Bennett, 100 Heartbeats, The Race to Save Earth's Most Endangered Species by Jeff Corwin, George, a Magpie Memoir by Frida Hughes, The Elephant Whisperer, Learning About Life, Loyalty, and Freedom from a Remarkable Herd of Elephants by Lawrence Anthony, and a couple I actually have physical copies of, The Soul of an Octopus by Cy Montgomery, and The Speckled Beauty, A Dog and His People by Rick Bragg. Of course, these two have the highest probability of being read this year. It's anybody's game. The next category is to read another John Grisham. I know that sounds really basic. I've read most of his stuff, but I returned to him in 2022 and read two books that ended up being favorites of the year, and that was The Guardians and The Confession. And so I got a newfound excitement in his work, so I definitely want to read another one of his. And I'm just going to leave it to chance on which one that is. The next category is to read a Haruki Murakami book. This is kind of controversial, I know. I hear his stuff is somewhat misogynistic, but there's just too much talk about his stuff, and my curiosity has been piqued to the point that I have actually purchased Norwegian Wood, I don't know, sometime last year. I felt like this was a good pick to start with for him. So 2024 could be the year for Murakami. The next one is to read a nonfiction book that has to do with health, science, nature, something like that. This I feel is going to be easy because these are just topics that are in the forefront of my mind on the daily. So I have a handful of books already on my TBR. It's just a matter of getting to one. We have No Meat Required, The Cultural History and the Culinary Future of Plant-Based Eating by Alicia Kennedy. This one made it onto my TBR because I've been a vegetarian for 15 years. I still eat fish occasionally. I still eat eggs occasionally, but I've kind of been on this path of getting to a 100% plant-based diet. I feel to get to that point, I need a little bit more education. Along the same lines is How to Go Vegan by Veganuary. Also, my recent interest in gardening and understanding of how having your own garden has a positive effect on the world around us. We have We Are the Ark, Returning Our Gardens to Their True Nature Through Acts of Restorative Kindness by Mary Reynolds. Switching gears a little bit, we have Goodbye Things, the new Japanese minimalism, although I don't think it's really new anymore. This one's by Fumio Sasaki. I have tried to instill kind of a minimalist philosophy on my own life for years now. I don't like to hold on to things, but I have yet to master that. Switching gears again, we have Selfish, Shallow, and Self-Absorbed, 16 Writers on the Decision Not to Have Kids, edited by Megan Daum, and that's pretty self-explanatory. And finally, the one that has the best chance of being read this year that I've been excited about ever since I heard about it is We Are the Weather, Saving the Planet Begins at Breakfast by Jonathan Safran Foer. And I think the fact that it's written by a novelist, it's going to be accessible as well as informative. The next category will come as no surprise, and whether or not I made a list for 24 and 2024, this was going to happen, and that is read the Women's Prize for Fiction. Of course I'm going to read the Women's Prize for Fiction. I'm so excited. The long list comes out March 5th. it's gonna happen. And the last three categories, they're categories, but they point to a specific book. So it's pretty easy. We have the longest time spent on my Goodreads TBR, and that book is Catch-22. Then we also have the book that has the highest number of pages, and that one is A Column of Fire by Ken Follett, which is the third in the Kingsbridge series. So there's really no reason why I shouldn't read that one other than it's a chunker. And the final category I chose for this list is the book on my TBR that has the lowest number of ratings, meaning the fewest number of people who have picked up this book and decided to rate it on Goodreads. And that book for me was The Church of the Holy Child by Patricia Hale. This was a freebie on my Kindle. It's a mystery. It's the first in a series. I think I'm gonna really like it. I just have never gotten to it. So that's it. Those are my 24 in 2024. What do you think about my spin of things? Have you read any of these books? Are there any that you would like to hear about more than the others? I would like to know. What books do you have on your plans for 2024? Do you even have plans? I want to know all the stuff. Please let me know, or you can just say hi down in the doodly-doo. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all next time. Bye-bye.